share what music festival took place in August 1969?
Oh, geez. Woodstock.
Woodstock, that's right. Any of you go?
Summer of Soul.
What's that? Summer of Soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we forget about.
Nobody made it? I didn't go either. I was just a little kid at the time, but we had just moved from Massachusetts to upstate New York, about an hour away from where Woodstock was being held. And as a young kid, I mean, that's what people were talking about, these hippies coming to town. And I thought those hippies were so cool, you know, with their long hair, they had ripped and frayed jeans. And I thought every single one of them drove a car like this. I don't know if I ever even saw any of these in person, but they made it seem like that's what these hippies had. And I thought, when I grow up, I want to have a car just like that. And I did. My very first car was a Volkswagen Bug. It just didn't look like that. See, I grew up in a very large family. There's 9 of us within a 13-year period. That's me on the right-hand side in blue. 9 kids, 13 years. That means almost every single year there was a new kid getting their driver's license. And this was not for joyriding, mind you. We all had part-time jobs. We had Mom and Dad worked, so we had to take the little kids to their ball games and the dentist and so forth, so we needed cars. So Dad was very mechanical, and he bought a bunch of Volkswagen Bugs for next to nothing, and back then, I guess, this is what he told me, that, you know, the parts were pretty interchangeable from year to year, and so he'd have all these broken down Bugs, and the neighborhood really loved us. And he would take some of the non-working parts and replace them with working parts, and he ended up with a bunch of really good Volkswagen Bugs that worked. But he sold those. And we got the ever-changing fleet of vehicles that always had a problem. There was one, literally, that had a hole in the floorboard. So you had to be careful when you put your foot on the gas not to put it through the floorboard. One didn't have heat, which doesn't sound bad in Florida, but this was upstate New York and it got really cold and drafty besides. One, the driver's door didn't close properly. And Dad got kind of frustrated with it, so we just welded it shut, which means you had to climb into the passenger side, which doesn't sound like, you know, too much for young people. This is when mini skirts were in style, right? That wasn't very fun. So it was first come, first serve all the time. And so my favorite was this one, the baby blue Volkswagen Bug. Because first of all, it was all one color. That was nice. It didn't have a whole lot of rust. It looked pretty darn good, except you had to remember when you stepped in the car, even though it looked like it had a lot of gas, it was broken. We had a broken fuel gauge. And so we had to remember to go in the glove box, pull out the notepad that hopefully someone wrote down the mileage of the last fill-up, and then you had to tack on, you know, mentally 200 miles so you would know when you're going to run out of fuel. And if you missed that or forgot that this was the car with the broken fuel gauge, either way, you were stuck at the side of the road. And this was before cell phones, mind you. So you might be walking miles to get gas or get to a payphone. Hopefully that somebody at the other end is picking it up, because remember, this was before voicemail, right? So if they weren't there, they didn't get the message. So, still was my favorite car. Now, why am I sharing the story about my baby blue Volkswagen Bug with broken fuel gauge? Because I think some of us have a broken fuel gauge. You know, when it comes to machines in our life, whether it's the car, the computer, the phone, I mean, if we get this low battery, aren't we all freaking out? Like, you gotta plug, you gotta plug. You know, we don't want to run out of fuel, but when it comes to us, and let's face it, the human body is a machine as well. We have moving joints, we have an engine, we have a computer that coordinates all of that. We don't think about how our body, like those other machines, requires fuel. And when we don't have proper fueling, well, then we end up with the things that Kevin was talking about. You know, we have more stress, burnout, fatigue, errors, and accidents. And the numbers are outrageous now the last couple of months, but they've always been high. I work a lot with, my background is as a registered dietitian, so I've been in the medical field doing continuing education, you know, for health providers for many, many years. And errors and accidents, I don't know if you realize, like 1 out of 300 hospital admissions involves some medical error. Kind of scary, isn't it? It could be something really slight that they, you know, didn't roll you over in time, you got a bed sore, and maybe that healed and there's no big deal. But it could be the wrong medication or they chopped off the wrong leg. So it could be severe. And what they found out is the longer you work, guess what? The more likely you are to have errors. But same thing with, work with nuclear power plants as well, the same thing, A lot of those accidents happened, what? After the end of a long shift or in the middle of the night. And so we know a lot of factors are involved with all this, but not just with like maybe you say, well, I'm not operating on anybody or running a nuclear power plant, but we're still dealing with people's lives, including our own, and don't we want to perform at our very best? So we need to kind of reverse this. We're spending a lot of money and wasting a lot of our lives on everything from lost productivity, missed work, errors and accidents, all of that. So we're going to do a game show to talk about how to do a reboot. So if you would just open up your camera app. We've all learned this through COVID, and hold it up, and it should take you directly in there without having to log in anything else. If you accidentally get logged out, you can just say to me, hey, can you pull up the QR code? I just press a button and it pops up. I don't have to go to another slide. So if at any point you get logged out for whatever reason, let me know and I'll pop it up. You can also go to menti.com and plug in the code. It takes a little bit longer, but I will have that up on every screen as well. So you should see this, which describes your energy. So why don't you start answering that one? And we'll see how many can get on by that time. Would you say you're running at a full tank? 3/4 full tank? Half tank? Quarter tank? Or are you completely out of fuel lately? What's it been like? There you go. Good, none of you are on empty. Oh.
Too soon.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing it changes from week to week, month to month, year to year. My daughter's always telling me, there's a season for everything, Mom. I don't know where she picked that up, but that's the classic line. There's a season, There's a season for being empty, and then there's a season for rejuvenating a little bit more, and it just changes. So, okay, so we're going to talk about how to get more of you to that full tank energy. So, okay, we're talking about energy. Where do we get our energy? You have to put gas in the car or plug it in. You have to charge your phones. Where do we get energy from? What is its originator? Is it from when we eat, sleep, move, think, or is it all of the above? What do you think? And don't look at the slide and say, oh, they're all answering this one. It might be correct, because it's not correct. It is not all of the above. So what do you think it is? Where do we get our energy?
Sleep.
And no, Kevin, you're not correct.
See, the thing is that if you get a good night's sleep, then you balance yourself.
Okay. Some of you are thinking, okay, this is not a trick question. This is not a trick question. See, we get fuel from the foods that we eat. And see, most people don't realize it. We know if we don't eat, we're going to lose weight, and over time, we're eventually going to die, right? You know that. But you don't think of it as wow, I need to eat to give me fuel, not just to move. When people think of energy, they think of physical energy. But you need energy for the brain to operate on, to keep you mentally focused and attentive.
Yeah.
You need energy even for our emotional status. So, have any of you ever looked up the word calories in the dictionary? Or is it only dietitians that do that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a measurement of energy. Absolutely. It's a measurement of energy. So if you don't eat enough calories, you don't have enough physical energy. It's absolutely impossible. Yeah, you can think positive, Kevin. I saw that. Yeah, positive thinking is wonderful because positive thinkers tend to take better care of their body, maybe, right? And tend to be a little bit more focused naturally. And certainly somebody mentioned movement. I think, it is very healthy to move your body. I like moving better than exercise. Exercise sounds torturous, But moving that body definitely does help you to feel energetic. Sleeping more makes you feel energetic. You're not so sluggish. But food is what is the original fuel for your body. If you don't get enough fuel, your energy wanes, you're just not as productive and focused. In fact, I read a study about parolees going up in front of the judge. Make sure your case is heard right after lunch or right after break, because you'll have a more positive outcome. You know, because we know you're just not you when you're hungry. And that Snickers commercial is so popular because it is true. We recognize that we do change when we don't have enough fueling, and I'm not suggesting that we all have a Snickers bar, by the way. So, for you, when you think about like where do I notice my low energy? Do you notice it in your physicalness, like you feel tired and sluggish, or is it mentally you realize you're not focusing, or emotional? And I'll tell you, my husband will always say to me, we're getting me a little spat, you know, and he'll say, Joanne, when was the last time you ate? Because he knows, if I haven't eaten, I'm a grump, or rhymes with which, you know what I mean? This is one of those. So we all feel it differently. So since we don't have a fuel gauge in our head that we can look at and see the red line up here, we have to kind of read our body and say, you know what? Something's off. I need a energy reboot, and I need to do something about it so I can be more productive, so I can feel better, so I can have better relationships with people, so I can have more patience when things get really trying. So we know that food gives us fuel. What about coffee and tea? Black coffee and tea. What do you think? Does it give us energy? It's always like this. Because, you know, some of you are saying, oh, yes, it gives me energy. I've got to have this much in the morning because it makes me feel energized, but it has no calories. I'm talking about black coffee, right? It has no calories, so technically it can't give you energy. It's a stimulant drug. It's your Adderall of choice, right? It makes you feel more focused. And I'm not bashing coffee. I had breakfast with Kevin this morning. I had my Diet Coke. That's anybody else a Diet Coke drinker in the morning? Yeah. I know, I'm kind of sick, but I don't like coffee, so I have my Diet Coke in the morning. There's nothing wrong with caffeine per se, because it does help to increase focus and attention. It can increase the speed of responses, no doubt about that. But you know, it's interesting, the research shows that it doesn't take very much. In other words, this much really works better than this much. And some of you are already saying, no, that's not true. I need this much. No, it's about 50 to 100 milligrams, which is a small cup of coffee. But the problem is, it's really not the coffee. I'm guessing what you're really craving in the morning when you think you need the big cup of coffee is the water. Have you ever gone to the bathroom first thing in the morning and looked in the toilet? What color is it? It's dark, right? That means you're dehydrated, and so you probably need to replenish it. So a lot of people find out, and I worked with Johnson & Johnson's Human Performance Institute, coaching business executives on this 2.5-day retreat where we really dove deep. And I'll tell you, I would say at least half of the people on day 3 woke up saying, that works. You know, just having a glass of water first thing, and then get into the coffee. You know, you don't drink as much. And let's face it, you have too much caffeine, what happens? Are you calm and patient? No, sometimes you get more high-strung, so it can work against you in terms of energy. So, you know, think about that. Maybe I need a little bit more water. Okay, so we know that calories are a measurement of energy, and so we need to eat to have energy. But when we eat that big meal over the holidays or vacations, does it give us more energy? Now, one of you answered yes. 2 of you answered yes. Do either of you want to speak up and tell me why you answered that? Because I'll tell you, you are correct. Now that you know you're correct, are you willing to speak up? See, I know some of you are saying, well, no, you know, when I eat that big meal, I do not feel like this. I feel like sleeping on the couch. And that is probably true. You're not energetic. But the thing is, calories are a measurement of energy. And so you have plenty of stored energy. So in other words, the way you eat can affect not just your body shape, it can not only affect your health, as you are all well aware, but it can affect so many other aspects of our life, including our energy. So what do you think? What kind of diet is recommended? Should we go high carb, low carb? Intermittent fasting are those people you've probably heard about. They kind of narrow the time that they can eat to an 8-hour period of time in a day, and the rest of the time they're fasting, they're not eating. Some people eat, you know, like every 3 hours throughout the day. What do you think? Nobody wants to say high carb? And that's not necessarily the answer. I just wanted to see if everybody wants to say high carb.
It creates the most calories.
What's that?
I said, does that high carb create the most calories?
No, it actually doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah. The question is, doesn't high carb create the most calories? You can eat any diet out there and it can be high calorie or it can be low calorie. Let's face it, you can. That may not be how you eat. In other words, if you eat high carb because you like carbs, love carbs, you know, maybe you tend to eat more. And so the thing is, it isn't really about the diet that you eat, as much as it is another factor. In other words, some people do well on high carbs, some people do well on a lower carb diet. Intermittent fasting, though, I should say, a lot of you mentioned eating every 3 hours. Personally, I eat every 3 hours. I got into the field of nutrition because of an eating disorder. When I was 16, right about the time I got my Volkswagen Bug, that picture was taken afterwards, but I had dropped 50 pounds. I became anorexic. And then I became bulimic, and I gained that back because I was over 25. And so I began my career as a dietitian with an eating disorder. I no longer have it. But anyway, through my recovery, that's what I started doing, is eating every 3 hours. That's what was recommended for me. And I'll tell you, I loved it. And I think it really helped to spark my energy. I wasn't ever hungry. I wasn't ever full. I loved it. And so here, all these years later, I eat that way. My daughter eats that way. My grandkids eat that way. And everybody else doesn't understand that, you know, we just got on the road. What, you need to eat again? You know? But that's how I am. Okay, but it isn't perfect for everybody. I'm not saying that you need to do that. I do have a problem, though, with intermittent fasting, where it tells you to eat within an 8-hour period of time. And some of you are saying, hey, I tried it, I lost weight, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about energy. Energy probably isn't, I know some of you are thinking, no, I feel good on that. Yeah, probably because you're losing weight, not because of the intermittent fasting. Plus, a lot of people can't stay on it for very long, and I always think of lifestyle as something, whatever you do, high carb, low carb, eat every 3 hours, whatever, it has to be something you can do long term, or, and then you're focused too much on diet. As somebody with an eating disorder background, I don't want people to be thinking about, when do I need to eat? What do I need to eat? Oh, this has too many carbs, I can't have it. I mean, that's enough to drive a person nutty. And if you feel that way sometimes, right? So, what diet is recommended? Well, when you look at the research, and a lot of this is coming from professional athletes, almost every Olympic team, probably every Olympic team by now, has a dietitian on staff. Because they know from research studies that it affects performance. And they can tell just being low a little bit on water, or low on carbs, or low on protein, whatever it is, that combination, it affects their performance. They don't do as well. It's the difference between gold and going home with nothing. So we know that it can affect even people like us that mostly sit at a desk. But it's more a balanced approach. It isn't anything weird. And by the way, I'll give you some resources if you want to know what exactly this balanced diet is. But basically, here's the thing I want you to realize, is just like with our cars, we need more fuel to get uphill than we do to go on a straight road, correct? And so we have to think about that when we're eating. In other words, we have to eat more when we're more active. So here's a question for you. You know that you're going to burn fewer calories when you're sleeping than when you're sitting, right? And you burn more calories when you're active than when you're sitting at the desk. But I wanted to ask you this one to see what you think. Sleeping burns what % of the calories of sitting? You know it's going to be less. But is it 20%, 40, 60, 80%? What do you think? So which one is it, do you think? Based on how you answered all the other questions as an audience, which one do you think it is? 80%. See, here's the thing. A lot of times, and if you have a Fitbit, you might have noticed this. You wake up in the morning and you say, something's wrong with my Fitbit. It's saying I burned 300 calories and all I did was sleep. Yeah, that's right. It is correct. Yeah, you did sleep, but you know what? Where do we burn most of our calories? Is it from activity, or is it from being alive?
Functions, yeah.
We burn most of our calories from being alive, from our heart beating, our lungs breathing, our brain coordinating. Do you know this brain of ours? It's only 2% of our body weight, and yet it burns 25% of all the calories we burn in a given day. Isn't that incredible? It is a very hyperactive piece of this human machine. And so even when we're asleep, we're alive, thank goodness. And so we're still burning calories. In other words, when you wake up in the morning and you say, I don't need to eat breakfast, all I did was sleep, that's not how the body fuels itself. And you're reading your body wrong. A lot of us have bad training, right? Because when you were a little kid, you probably woke up with an appetite. You ate breakfast. And somewhere along the way, you just got off track there. So, probably the most important way to fuel your body for lasting energy throughout the day, not just from when you're at work, but all the way until bedtime. And I'll tell you, I hear this story a lot of times, especially because I work with business executives, and they'll say to me, I have great energy all day long. And I'll say, all day long? Like even when you get home? Oh no, when I get home, I'm on the couch. I can't do anything. I've gotten out of my exercise routine, I'm grumpy with the kids. But they think in terms of, oh, I'm energized at work. Great, they really appreciate that. Well, what about the most important people in your life? Your family, your friends, you? Don't you deserve energy at the end of the day as well? So if you want lasting energy, think about fueling your body with the right amount throughout the day, kind of like that Goldilocks perfect, I feel satisfied, not full, not hungry, kind of feeling throughout the day. Meaning that if you exercise in the morning, well, then that should be the bigger meal. Or at least slightly bigger, right? Because you're burning more fuel then. But that's not how most people eat. I would say nearly everybody I meet, they eat this tiny little breakfast, if they eat breakfast at all. They drink coffee all morning long and maybe into the afternoon. And then at lunchtime, they're like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to eat healthy, so I'm just gonna have a salad, put the dressing on the side, right? And then what do? Then they get home and they stuff their face. Now, does that seem like how this is operating? So, there you go. If you want to fuel your body throughout the day, all the way until bedtime, just even remembering, and I'll tell you, a lot of the people that I work with, the clients, they said that kind of, and for me too, with my eating disorder, I think that was the thing that finally pushed me to the normal edge, kind of semi-normal, my family might differ. But this whole idea of food is fuel. Because when I started looking at it as my friend is good for me, it took away a lot of the other stuff. And if any of you have ever dieted your entire life, even if you didn't have an eating disorder, you probably know what I'm talking about. That love-hate relationship you have with food. I started looking at food as fuel and look looked at choosing foods that made me feel better, because let's face it, certain types of foods make the next couple of hours feel better. Realized that caffeine and stress might make you feel energized in the moment, but that's what leaves you empty at the end of the day. And then, think about just having 3 meals a day rather than this one big meal at night. And that's, again, the problem with that intermittent fasting. They tell you which hours to eat. It's 8 hours. So maybe you say, well, I'll wait until noon to eat, and then I can eat until 8 p.m. That's not how your body fuels. It fuels it pretty much 24/7. And what you're doing is saying, I hear that you're hungry, but too bad, you just have to wait until noon. And that's not the way the body operates for energy. So let's switch gears just a little bit, because some of you mentioned, a lot of you mentioned sleep and how it affects energy, and it absolutely does. But it isn't the originator of energy, right? Just sleeping adequately without eating, we're still going to die if we don't eat something, right? But sleep is really important, and I'll tell you, again, I think most people think that they can do okay with what they're doing. I hear that all the time. I'm doing fine. A few cups of coffee and I'm ready to go. Or, I'm getting used to it. Or I'll get used to it. There are people who actually believe you can get used to it, and you can't. You put people in a laboratory and you let them sleep as long as you can, and we have some idea about how much sleep that they need. What do you think? How much sleep is recommended every single day? What do you think? And again, these are based on studies. They're in a laboratory. There's no windows. There's no clocks. They get to sleep as long as they can, so they just let people sleep as long. How much do they end up needing? So how much sleep is needed? Studies show it's usually between 6 and 9. Yes, there are outliers on both ends, no doubt about it. But so, hey, almost all of you got the answer correct. Isn't that great? You finally got one answer correct. Here's the thing. You probably know not getting enough sleep doesn't feel good. Did you know that when you don't get enough sleep, not only does it increase your risk of diabetes and high blood pressure, even Alzheimer's, and you know what, I've had people, in fact my daughter-in-law, when COVID first happened, what can I do to increase the immune system of my kids to fight off COVID? And I'd say, get more sleep. They're staying up until midnight all the time with the kids, because that's just their habit. They're late night people, so the kids, and I'm thinking, that is not good for kids. I don't know if that conversation went over really well. But you know what, people don't realize that probably the strongest thing you can do to boost your immune system, forget the supplements, get more sleep. When people don't sleep, they've shown that even being a half hour short on the sleep that you need, and that's what the statistics show, we're about a half hour. Some of us are more than a half hour short, some of us a little bit less, but we're about a half hour short, even just a half hour short on sleep. One study showed that participants ate 83 more calories on a given day. Doesn't sound like too much? Add it up over a year and that's 8 pounds. 8 pounds of weight. And what happens is when you don't when you don't get enough sleep, it messes with the hormones, so you either feel hungrier or you feel less full. But either way, you don't feel like you're eating more, you don't feel like you're stuffing yourself, but you end up eating more, even if you could read your system. And so it might be good for everything, including your energy. So how do you know if you're getting enough sleep? And I know you can't read this text, but on your phone it should be a little bit easier. These are the 4 statements I ask when people say, well, do you think I'm getting enough sleep? And it's different for different people, so how do you know? So answer these. How many do you think that are true for you? Can you get up in the morning feeling refreshed? What about a boring meeting, a boring drive? Can you stay awake? Because boring meetings are boring, but they shouldn't lull you to sleep. What about at the end of the day? Are you one to find yourself on the couch and you're going all day long, but you fall asleep after that? And what about weekends? Are you sleeping more on the weekend? Now, mind you, we've already had 51 votes, and you can see it's about 30 across the board. So, like 2/3 of you are saying, no, I can't meet that requirement. So about, well, no, I guess 1/3 are saying that they don't meet it. 2/3 are saying. So if you're getting adequate sleep, you should be able to answer yes to every single one of those. You should wake up, I'm not saying feeling like energizing, like, but you don't feel like you have to have that coffee right away. You should not fall asleep immediately in a boring meeting. That's a clear indicator. And you should hopefully have energy for the rest of the day. And the weekends, if you're sleeping longer, I'll tell you, that's probably the biggest thing that people notice. If they're sleeping 9-10 hours on the weekend, then no, 4 hours of sleep during the week was not enough for you. That's your body's way of figuring out. But the thing is, it's not just about the hours of sleep, because a lot of times people focus on that. As we get older, and I think a lot of us are feeling like that old Volkswagen Bug, feeling a little older, rusting on the sides, right? Hopefully we don't have any leaking oil or any other fluids. But we're starting to feel that way. And even if we're getting adequate amount of sleep, we might want to look at what else is going on. Because a lot of people say, I'm getting lots of sleep. But sleep apnea is an issue in a lot of populations, like truck drivers. It's like 40% or 43%, something like that, of truck drivers. And maybe because they tend to be overweight as well, and the sedentary job that they have. Sleep apnea, meaning like you fall, when you go to sleep, you actually stop breathing for a period of time and then wake up and go back to breathing. And the thing is, you don't even know it. So if you have a partner who says you're snoring, you better take their word for it. Something is going on. So it's all about uninterrupted sleep, to make sure that you're sleeping through the night for those many hours. Because there's different types of sleep. There's REM sleep, which is where you dream, which is really good for our moods, our emotions, helps with the memory consolidation. And then there's the deep sleep, when somebody wakes you up and you don't know where you are, who you are, who that person in bed with you is. That's deep sleep. But see, that's really important. That's where we control our blood pressure and our diabetes, our blood sugars. That's where our intellectual performance, to help us to work our brain better the next day, is so important. And so both types of sleep are really important. As we go through sleep, we actually rotate between these. We go into deep sleep, we stay there for a while, and we go into REM sleep, and then we go into deep sleep. And the thing is, if you get interrupted as you're going into deep sleep, and you wake up, for whatever reason, you have to go back to start. It's like Monopoly, right? And so you start again, and you get woken up, and you have to go back. And so you may not get the sufficient amount of either of these types of sleep that are so important. And that can affect our performance the next day. So whatever wakes you up, that bed partner, or the kids that you're sharing your bed with, or the dogs, or the cats, I hear a lot of stories about that, and they'll say, no, we sleep fine together. The research shows you're not sleeping fine together. You may not, it's kind of like with that person where they stop breathing and then they don't even know. I had a friend of mine who stopped breathing 30, because he went in for a sleep study. He stopped breathing 30 times during the night. Stopped breathing for 15, 30 seconds. And each time he woke up with and he didn't wake up during any of this. You know why? Because he's sleep deprived. So a lot of times people say, no, I sleep fine, I sleep through the night. You don't even know. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you've had a sleep study. I personally have. Oftentimes what they start off with is, the oximeter thing that you put your finger in at the doctor's office. Maybe you bought one during COVID that measures your blood oxygen. Oftentimes they start off with something like that, where you take it home, it's connected in a wire to a little computer that's the size of a phone that you set on your nightstand, and it just measures your blood oxygen throughout the night. And that kind of like rules out some of the things. So if it's up there at 96%, then you're probably not suffering from sleep apnea. So it doesn't mean you have to spend thousands of dollars and go into a sleep laboratory. It could be something like that to kind of rule out what might be going on with you. But it's really critical to get that sleep for so many reasons, not just energy. So what if you have a problem getting to sleep? What do you think? Melatonins. What do you think? Melatonin supplements, are they going to help you? Because maybe some of you have tried them. How many of you have tried melatonin supplements? Let's see your votes, and then I'll share with you what the research says. Any idea what you think it might be?
If the research shows that it doesn't help,
As it turns out, melatonin does help with jet lag and any kind of disorder where you're out of sync in terms of when day and night is. For example, blind people. They can't sense light, and so they tend to be out of sync. And so it works really well for those individuals to help their body get back into sync. Because I don't know if you realize that melatonin is a hormone that we naturally produce, but it's called the Dracula hormones. I love that. And meaning it only comes out in the dark. So when we go to sleep, hopefully we're in a dark environment, and our eyes cannot detect any light, then that message passes through the eyes, down the optic nerve, into our brain, and it starts the melatonin production. And melatonin helps you to get sleepy. So in other words, we produce this naturally anyway. It's not just available in supplements. I mean, we produce this. But any bit of light can prevent us from producing melatonin, and it can prevent us from getting the benefits of the supplements we take. So in other words, if you go to bed with full lights on, the TV is on because somebody else is watching TV maybe, the bathroom light is on because you like to get there in the middle of the night without stumbling over things, whatever, you're not going to produce enough melatonin, and you're not going to utilize even the supplements. So the research shows you're going to fall asleep in 15 minutes with or without supplements. I mean, there's really no difference. It might make you feel like you're falling asleep better, but in a laboratory where they have placebos, it doesn't really show much difference. So probably the best thing to do is to remember, not only to make sleep a priority and control those interruptions, whatever it might be, but to make the bedroom as cool and dark as possible. Because even tapping on your phone to see what time it is in the middle of the night is enough to have that blue light go into your eyes, down the optic nerve, and say, it's morning! And they stop the melatonin production. So young people really have that issue because they're oftentimes checking their phone in the middle of the night. And people say, well, I put it on low, whatever. Doesn't matter. You're still interrupting all of that. So let me introduce one more thing before I let you go for the day. And that has to do with something totally different, but also another way we can energize our body. When my daughter went into the 3rd grade, I remember we went to orientation because things were different in the 3rd grade. In our early years, you're in the same classroom all day long with the same teacher. 2nd grade, they actually switched. So they were with this teacher in the morning, and they were with this teacher in the afternoon, but they all went together as a class. Well, in 3rd grade orientation, my daughter was freaking out because she heard now she's going to get a schedule. And not everybody has the same schedule. So you might go to art and somebody else goes to PE or somebody else goes to math. And she's like, I'm going to get lost. Now, mind you, she's already been in the school for like 3 years. She was probably not going to get lost, but she was freaking out over it. And so I made sure I met her at the bus stop on that very first day because I wanted to make sure she had a good day. I was worried about her. And so she got off the bus and I said, how was school? And she said, good. And I said, what was your favorite class? What do you think? You're like, did she give me any hint? No, I didn't give you any hint. What do you think? What do you think she said? I have my guesses too. thought it was going to be lunch. I really did. But it wasn't. And it clearly wasn't math. We found out later on. So then I thought, recess? Yes, she liked recess. And I said, you liked PE too? You know, because I figured, recess, PE, kind of like the same thing. And she said, no, I hate PE. And it was such a violent response. And I said, I don't get it. I mean, why don't you like PE? And she said, and I remember this clearly because I wrote it in my journal. And I've read it to her many times throughout the years because I think it's just so funny. She said, in PE, you have to wear a uniform and do what the teacher says. And in recess, you can do whatever you want. And I thought, that is brilliant. That is true, right? It's the same kind of maybe activity, but you get to do whatever you want. And I think this is an important thing to remember about exercise because clearly people who exercise tend to sleep better, they tend to eat better, they tend to have more energy, they have a lower risk for diabetes and high blood pressure, helps with weight control. But the thing is, people have this mentality about PE. I got to go to the gym. I got to watch my pulse and get it up to this amount, or, I have to lift weights, right? Whenever you introduce those kind of words, it's no fun. You're thinking of it as PE. So what if you started thinking of it as recess and just started playing? Just started moving, just doing something fun. I personally am a tap dancer, and I am not the oldest person in the class, but pretty close. There's one person that's older than me. I hope she stays there, so I'm not the oldest. It's all about kind of doing that something's fun without worrying about your pulse, without counting the minutes all the time. Because we get so overwhelmed with all of this. I'm sure you've seen this about all the stuff we should do. And then it's kind of like for me going into Michael's, the craft store, you know what I mean? I go in there thinking I want to do a craft, maybe with the grandkids. And I walk in, I am so overwhelmed, I buy nothing. I don't even know what to do. And so I think a lot of people feel that way when it comes to movement. They see all this and they say, oh gosh, I can't do any of that, That's just too much and I don't have enough time. We're all busy people. But the thing is, the research shows that sometimes you don't have to do everything. So what do you think the guidelines say in terms of exercise? You're supposed to get 30 to 45 minutes of aerobic activity, meaning you get your heart rate up, running, biking, swimming, tap dancing, jumping rope, climbing trees, whatever. Look, it's all over the place. I'll tell you, the original guideline was, yes, it had to be totally uninterrupted. That was the whole thing, is you had to do it all at once. I would say this research changed probably 10 or 15 years ago. It's been a while, where they said, no, 10-minute chunks is okay. So in other words, you can walk the dog in the morning for 10 minutes, at noon, maybe walk the stairs or walk around the building for 10 minutes. In the evening, 10 minutes. And then you've got 30 minutes of exercise in. And that was life-changing for a lot of people who could get that mentality stuck in their brain, is that it didn't have to be all at the same time. But now they're finding out that even 1-minute intervals counts. Even 1-minute intervals. And so think about this, because there's tons of research showing that physical breaks, because you probably know that it is helpful to take breaks. One of you takes breaks during the day? This thing is okay and operate for long periods of time, many single days and months without being turned off. I know, I've challenged it. Same thing with your car, you keep gassing it up and it keeps going. Except you have one of those Volkswagen bugs. But when it comes to the human body, we are meant to take breaks. That's why we have to sleep every single day. We have to shut down, we have to rebuild. But the thing is, we've also shown that people do well Performance-wise, if they take breaks periodically, in other words, think of your life not like a marathon, but as a sprinter. So work hard, productively, and take a break. Work hard, productively, and take a break. Now, some of you were saying, well, how long should I work before I take a break? And you know what? There's research out there, but I think a lot of it depends on what activity you are doing. Some activity is so intense, you really have to take a break after 5 minutes. And some activities you can probably stay in the zone for an hour or two, and that's okay too. But to take a break, and they found out the best kind of breaks are physical breaks. Not getting on your phone, looking through your Facebook feed, or watching a YouTube video about cats, or even listening to music. The best sort of break in terms of when they look at your brain waves, when they look at your energy level, your change in mood, your productivity. A lot of these studies are done with people working on computer games, but they know what your level of computer games is. And taking a physical break increase your speed and your accuracy, and that's all good in our job. So think about, how could I take some physical breaks where I work? And I'll tell you, I heard an ingenious story one time. I was working with an executive who was an auditor, and he said sometimes he's surrounded by the table while he's working. They're also doing things with him as well, but he said it's just really hard to take a break during that 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour day. And he said, so he got in the habit of drinking more water. He came to my program, he learned he needs to drink more water, and what he did is he made it his goal to drink a bottle of water every hour, which means then you have to go to the bathroom, right? And so it gave him an excuse. Oh, I got to run to the bathroom. And so when he went to the bathroom, he would go down the stairs, around the building, back up the stairs, use the bathroom to go into. And it took 5-8 minutes or so to do. It didn't take very long, but he had to do that every single hour. And he said, it made my job much easier. And nobody was saying, oh, there they go again, taking a break. The cigarette smokers, there they are taking another break. But if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to the bathroom, right? So, in closing, my little boat's way, as you go down the road, I want you to start paying attention to your low fuel signals. When do you need to refuel? How do you need to refuel? Do you need to be eating differently? Do you need to get more sleep? Do you need to move your body more? See, the thing about energy is these solutions are rather simple ones. And I know some of you are thinking, they're kind of common sense, right? But common sense isn't always common practice, is it? So, let me ask you, what do you think you're going to do? And by the way, word clouds work best with 1 or 2 words. So instead of saying drink less coffee, maybe just say less coffee and more water. But let's see what you are committed to do. Can you commit to one thing? One thing. One of the things I've learned about change management is one of the reasons why it doesn't work is because people try to do an overhaul. January 1st, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to change my eating habit, I'm going to work fewer hours, whatever it is that they claim to do, and that works about the first week or 2. And notice what's in the middle. Sleep. And so often, I remember I met this guy, he only had 4-5 hours of sleep every single day. He said he was doing just fine, thank you very much. But I did finally convince him that maybe he needs a little bit more sleep. He finally decided, I'm going to give it to 6 hours of sleep. Wasn't ready for the 7, 8 or anything, but I said, that's fine, but this is an improvement. And the thing is, he got 6 hours of sleep, and he said, when he came back, he said, what I noticed is now I work faster, more efficiently. It's not like I have to work more hours. He said, people have the mentality of, I don't have time to sleep more. But what they don't realize is that they slept a little bit more, would they perform better? Would they be a better person? Would people like you more? Just speaking for myself. Okay, so sleep got a little bit smaller. It's right there in the middle with water. There's some more sleep over there, taking breaks. So again, it's just about making some small little changes. I hope I've motivated you to do that. What I wanted to do, because you can't spell Volkswagen without swag, I've got some swag for you. At this website, I've got links to some of my podcasts, blogs, videos, YouTube videos that kind of answer some of the questions that we talked about. So in other words, there's an article about intermittent fasting. If you say, oh, I want to know why she said that about intermittent fasting, go ahead and read that. If you want to learn more about sleep, not everything is there, but you can go to my blog and search it and probably find something else there. But hopefully you'll find something that helps you, gives you the information that you need, because I know all of you love to, are you all kind of why people? You need to know why, you need to know a little bit more. I know that's how I am. And I also have some copies of my book, I've got 5 copies, and I'd love to give them out to any birthday people. There you go. One for you and one for you. Thank you very much.